While I was at a photo shoot with a client in Central Park, I saw my fiancée holding hands with another guy. She froze when she noticed me, and I'd been shooting in Central Park since sunrise, trying to meet a client's endless requests for perfect natural light. It was mid-afternoon when the wind shifted, scattering leaves across the path and giving me a break from her questions. I adjusted my lens and turned toward the fountain. That's when I saw her. Isabelle, my fiancée, walking hand in hand with another man. For a few seconds, I genuinely thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Central Park was crowded that day. Families, joggers, tourists. But the way she laughed, tilting her head back like she always did when she felt adored, was unmistakable. The man beside her wasn't a friend. The way their hands locked said more than any words could. My client was still talking, but her voice faded into static. Isabelle wore the green scarf I'd given her on our last anniversary, the one she said she only wore on special days. When she finally noticed me standing near the stone bridge, camera in hand, her smile died mid-sentence. Her body stiffened. The man turned, following her gaze, and didn't even bother to let go of her hand. I crossed the park before I could talk myself out of it. My client called after me, confused, but I kept walking, steady, deliberate. Isabelle's eyes darted everywhere, toward the crowd, toward the man, toward me. She muttered something to him and tried to pull her hand away. He didn't release it. The man was tall, well-dressed, late 30s, the kind of guy who looked like he had every advantage life could offer. People began to notice the tension. The air between us was heavy, silent, waiting. I asked her if she wanted to explain why she was walking hand in hand with a stranger in the same park where we were supposed to have our engagement photos taken next week. She blinked rapidly, pretending confusion, saying it was just a family friend from her old job. The man gave me a brief nod, unbothered, almost amused, like he'd been through this scene before. Then something strange happened. A street performer near the fountain, one of those human statues, suddenly shouted, "Hey, that's the guy from Channel 8 News. Reeves Realty, right?" The crowd murmured. I glanced back at him. He was indeed the man I'd seen in a real estate ad months earlier, Colton Reeves. Married. Public figure. Isabelle's face drained of color. Colton muttered something under his breath and tried to walk away. I didn't stop him, just turned my attention back to her. She begged me quietly not to cause a scene, but it was too late. My client was watching from across the path, phone halfway raised, as if deciding whether to record. I told Isabelle to leave with me. She refused. I asked again who he was. She repeated the same line, a friend, but couldn't meet my eyes. That was the moment I realized the woman I was planning to marry could lie so easily, it almost looked like truth. I walked away before I said something I'd regret. I finished my photo session with mechanical precision, every click of the shutter sounding like a countdown. That evening, Isabelle showed up at my apartment before I even got home. She sat on the couch like she belonged there, tears ready, voice soft, saying everything could be explained. She told me Colton was helping her get freelance styling work for his company, that she was only being polite, that he'd grabbed her hand unexpectedly. I listened, calmly. I let her talk herself into a corner. Then she mentioned something small, something she didn't mean to say, that they'd met at a hotel lounge to discuss a potential client. But she had never mentioned a hotel before. I hadn't asked where they met. Her eyes widened the second she realized her mistake. I didn't respond, just nodded and told her I believed her, that I needed some air. She smiled in relief, not realizing I had my phone recording the entire conversation sitting right beside her on the armrest. After she left, I sat in silence for almost an hour. I didn't call anyone. I didn't break anything. I just scrolled through our shared calendar and realized she'd been working late or visiting her mother every Wednesday for the past month. Always between 5 and 9 p.m., the same window of time I usually had evening shoots. Something about the timing felt too deliberate. I checked her social media. No updates for the past week, which was unusual for her. Isabelle was the type who posted everything. But one of her friends had tagged her in a background photo at a cafe downtown, time-stamped exactly during one of her work nights. I zoomed in. A man's reflection in the window. The same gray suit I'd seen in the park. It wasn't proof yet, but it was enough to light a fire under the calm exterior I'd always been known for. I decided not to confront her again. Instead, I drove to my studio to distract myself, edit the day's work, maybe lose the frustration in a few hundred photographs. The streets were quiet when I pulled up. My studio was on the second floor of an old brick building near the river. High ceilings, big windows, the kind of space that felt alive at night. As I unlocked the door, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No contact, no name, just a text that read, "You don't know what she's been doing. Check the studio." I froze in the doorway. I thought it was a prank from someone who had seen the park incident, maybe a cruel stranger from social media. but the text didn't feel random. The timing was too precise. I turned on the lights and scanned the room. Everything seemed normal at first. Props neatly stored, tripods folded, computer still on sleep mode. Then I noticed one of the cameras on the far side of the room was still on its tripod, lens pointed toward the small setup area where clients posed for indoor sessions. The power light blinked faintly. It shouldn't have been on. I hadn't used that camera in weeks. I checked the display. The memory card was full. I hit playback. The first clips were ordinary, test shots, lighting adjustments, some client previews. Then, a different frame appeared. Dim lighting. 2 people in the studio at night. A woman in a coat, laughing. A man pouring wine into one of my clean glass props. She took off her coat and revealed a green scarf. My green scarf. The same one from the park. I stepped back slowly, cold settling over me like ice. The video kept playing. They toasted. They kissed. They made jokes about my work. He picked up a framed print of one of my clients and made some mocking comment I couldn't hear through the low audio. She laughed until she cried. Then she threw the scarf over the camera accidentally, and the screen went black. I ejected the card and sat there in silence for a long time, staring at the floor, the blinking red light on the camera still flashing faintly. My first instinct was to call her. My second was to throw the camera against the wall. I did neither. I just stared at the message again on my phone. Whoever sent it had known exactly where to direct me, and that thought scared me more than the video itself. I shut down the lights, locked the studio door, and walked into the cold night air. My phone buzzed again, same number. Another message. That wasn't the worst part. She's not done. I didn't reply. I just looked up at the skyline and realized something had cracked beyond repair. Whatever I thought I knew about Isabelle, it ended the moment I saw her in that park, and now someone else, somewhere, wanted to show me what came next. I didn't sleep that night. The video from the studio ran in my head in an endless loop, every laugh, every movement, every little way she seemed comfortable in a space that was supposed to be ours. I had built that studio with Isabelle. She'd helped pick the paint, arrange the furniture, even design the logo for my business cards. To see her use it as a playground for someone else felt like a kind of trespass that went deeper than cheating. By dawn, I was still sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone. The unknown number hadn't texted again. I wanted to know who it was, but I also didn't want to invite whatever this was further into my life. Still, the curiosity gnawed at me. I decided to go back to the studio in daylight, check if anything else had been touched, maybe find out how long this had been going on. When I arrived, the place looked normal again, almost too normal. The faint smell of her perfume still lingered in the air. I checked my backup drives, every camera, every SD card. That's when I found a second file. It wasn't video, it was audio, recorded from one of the small mics I kept in the setup area for ambient sound. I played it. 2 voices. Hers and his. Clear as day. They were arguing about something. He wanted her to convince him to sell his client list through their private deal. She told him she couldn't because Nathan keeps track of every session. Then Colton's voice dropped lower, smug. He told her that if she wanted a future with him, she needed to prove she could handle it. Then the sound of a zipper, a muffled laugh, and a whisper. This is proof enough. I shut it off. I didn't need to hear more. That afternoon, I sent Isabelle a message asking her to come to the studio. I told her we needed to talk about what happened in the park. She arrived an hour later, sunglasses on, hair perfect, trying to look composed but failing. I didn't say a word when she walked in. I just pressed play on the video again and turned the monitor toward her. She froze, like her body forgot how to move. When the clip ended, she tried to spin it, said Colton had pressured her, said it was one mistake, that he'd promised to help her get styling work with his firm. She said she didn't mean for it to go that far. She started crying, the kind of crying that used to break me down instantly. This time, it didn't. When she realized it wasn't working, she switched tactics. She told me she'd been lonely, that I was too focused on my career, that she just wanted to feel noticed again. It was a performance. I'd seen her do the same kind of emotional pivoting at dinner parties, charming her way through anything. I told her to sit down. She hesitated but obeyed. Then I picked up my phone and pressed the screen. Her voice filled the room from last night's recording, the one where she mentioned the hotel by accident. She looked up at me in shock. I told her calmly that I'd recorded everything, that I wasn't yelling, not calling her names, but I wanted truth. Real truth. She stood abruptly, trembling, accusing me of spying. I didn't answer. She stormed toward the door, but I stopped her and handed her a small flash drive. I said it contained a copy of the footage. I told her to watch it later, when she was done pretending. Then I opened the door for her and let her walk out. The silence that followed was deafening. For the next 2 days, she didn't contact me. I thought maybe she'd packed her things and moved out. Then, late Thursday night, I got another text from the same unknown number. You think you've seen everything. You haven't. She's been using you. Look at your invoices. At first, I ignored it. Then curiosity won. I opened my client management software and started scrolling through the list of recent transactions. Something jumped out immediately. Duplicate payments, different names, identical invoice numbers. Someone had cloned my client list and sent invoices using a similar email address. The payments had been routed to a side account. The account name was IR Styling LLC. Isabelle's initials. I followed the money trail through PayPal logs and business transfers. Some invoices were months old. She'd been siphoning small percentages from every session I booked, claiming referral fees through a shell company. And the sender address? A domain registered to Reeves Consulting. It hit me then. Colton wasn't just some affair. He was her partner in this. They'd been using my client base to build their own business on the side. I drove to her apartment, but she wasn't there. The doorman said she'd left with Mr. Reeves an hour earlier. I sat in my car outside the building, engine idling, pulse hammering in my throat. I didn't even know what I'd do if I saw them. Confront them both? Expose them publicly? None of it would fix what they'd already done. Instead, I called an old acquaintance, someone who worked in real estate marketing, and asked about Colton Reeves. The response was immediate. You mean Margot's husband? Didn't know he was still in New York. I went quiet. The name hit me like a hammer. Margot Reeves. Married. That meant Isabelle was sleeping with a married man and stealing from me in the process. And now I had footage, audio, and a paper trail linking them both. I decided to make one clean move, something deliberate. I compiled every piece of evidence I had, videos, screenshots, invoices, and uploaded them to a hidden folder online. Then I wrote a brief, polite email. Mrs. Reeves, you don't know me, but I think your husband and I have a problem in common. Please contact me before I forward this to the press. I didn't expect a reply that night. But 10 minutes later, I got one. Short, calm. Let's talk. Tomorrow. Cafe Vernazza, 10 a.m. I barely slept. The next morning, Margot Reeves walked into the cafe exactly on time. She was composed, mid-40s, impeccably dressed, and not surprised to see me. She said she'd suspected her husband for months, but didn't have proof. I gave her a flash drive. She didn't flinch when she saw the thumbnail preview of the video, just sighed, like confirmation hurt less than doubt. When she left, she turned and said one sentence that stuck with me. You'll never get justice by staying silent. Let them expose themselves. I didn't know what she meant until later that day. Isabelle showed up at my studio again, eyes red, asking if we could talk like adults. She said Colton's wife had found out and threatened to ruin her. She'd begged me to help, to say I'd forgiven her, so she could keep her job. That was when I finally saw her for who she really was. Not scared, not remorseful, just desperate to save herself. I told her the truth, that I wasn't planning to protect her, that I didn't owe her any more silence. She screamed that I'd ruined her life. I didn't respond. She left in tears. When the door closed, my phone buzzed again. Same number. You're getting close. Just wait for the dinner. I stared at the message, trying to figure out what it meant. Dinner. I didn't know it yet, but the next move wouldn't come from me. It would come from Margot. The message about the dinner replayed in my mind for hours. At first, I thought it was a threat. Then I realized it might be a hint. Margot had told me to let them expose themselves, and she wasn't the kind of person to make idle comments. By Saturday, Isabelle texted me again, this time sounding calmer, almost strategic. She said we needed closure, that we should meet for dinner and talk about what went wrong before things got uglier. She offered to make the reservation herself. For once, I didn't refuse. I told her I'd meet her. But as soon as she sent me the location, a quiet upscale restaurant downtown, I knew it wasn't just about closure. I had a feeling Margot had planned this. The restaurant was the kind of place where the lighting was dim enough to make people think they could hide from reality. Isabelle arrived first, in a black dress that didn't look accidental. She looked tired but determined, as if she'd rehearsed a speech. When I sat down, she smiled politely, almost like we were business partners meeting after a tough quarter. She said she'd ended things with Colton, claimed she'd realized he was manipulative, that he'd used her, that she'd been blinded by promises. It sounded rehearsed, like something she'd practiced in the mirror. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. She sighed dramatically and leaned back. That's when I noticed someone sitting 2 tables away. A woman, mid-40s, brunette hair in a bun, focused on her wine glass, but occasionally glancing toward us. Margot. She didn't acknowledge me. She didn't need to. The waiter came. Isabelle ordered a bottle of Pinot Noir for both of us. I asked for water. I wanted clarity, not comfort. She began to talk about rebuilding trust, moving forward, maybe working on projects together again since our brands still looked stronger side by side. The arrogance in her tone almost made me laugh. Even in disaster, Isabelle thought in terms of image. She said she'd learned from her mistakes, that she wanted to make things right. I didn't answer. I let her fill the silence because silence made her nervous. She fidgeted with her napkin, then with her phone. Half an hour passed before Margot stood. She walked straight to our table, her heels clicking like a metronome in the quiet restaurant. Isabel's smile froze mid-sentence. Margot didn't even look at me. Her focus was entirely on Isabelle. She placed a slim folder on the table and said, "You should read this before you finish your wine." Then she turned and left without waiting for a reply. Inside the folder were printed invoices, email copies, and one still image from the studio footage. Isabelle laughing with Colton while holding a check. Isabelle's name was on the transaction, listed as creative consultant. It wasn't a single payment either. There were multiple, spanning months. The total exceeded $20,000. For a few seconds, she didn't move. Then she whispered that Margot was lying, that it was all edited. I asked her one question. How many lies did it take before even she couldn't keep track anymore? She slammed the folder shut and hissed that I had no right to judge her. She said I'd pushed her into someone else's arms by ignoring her, by being too good for emotions. It was a strange insult, cold and desperate at once. I told her she didn't just betray me, she robbed me. That's when she lost control. Her voice rose. She said Colton told her I'd been cheating first, that I'd been taking intimate photos of clients for extra money. I stared at her, stunned. It was a ridiculous accusation, but she said it with conviction, like she believed it, or needed to believe it to survive the moment. People at nearby tables started to glance our way. She lowered her voice again, pretending composure. I paid the bill quietly and stood up. Isabelle followed me out, begging me not to walk away. I said I wasn't walking away, I was ending it. Then I left her standing in front of the restaurant, clutching that folder like a shield made of paper. When I got home, my phone was full of messages from her, paragraphs of guilt, anger, apology, accusation, all in a blur of contradiction. I ignored them. Instead, I opened my laptop and sent an email to every major client we had ever collaborated with. It was brief and factual. There's been a breach of trust involving misuse of my client network. Any future bookings through IR Styling or Reeves Consulting are unauthorized. Attached are details for transparency. No slander, no emotion, just truth. By Monday morning, Isabelle's world began to unravel. 3 of her biggest clients canceled contracts. 2 posted vague but noticeable remarks on social media about professional misconduct. Word spread fast. Her stylist Instagram page went private by the afternoon. Then I got a call from one of Colton's business partners, a man named Rice. He said Colton had been pulled from a project and that Margot had gone public with their marital issues. Rice sounded almost relieved, like a long-held secret had finally detonated. But then came the second shock. That evening, Isabelle showed up at my apartment again. No tears this time. No pleading. Just anger. Her lipstick was smeared, her voice raw. She said she knew everything. That Colton told her I had sent the footage to his wife, that I'd ruined both their careers. She called me a coward who hid behind others. Then she smiled strangely, the kind of smile that carried venom. She said Colton had given her a copy of proof that I'd been photographing clients illegally. Explicit photos, she said, the kind that could end my career overnight. I didn't believe her, but I saw in her eyes that she believed herself. Colton had fed her that lie as a final manipulation. He'd convinced her that she could destroy me before I destroyed him. I told her to go ahead, to do whatever she thought she needed to. She blinked, caught off guard by my calmness. Then she started to laugh, a sharp, exhausted sound that echoed through the hall. "You really think you'll come out clean?" she said before storming out. When the door closed, I finally exhaled. The fight wasn't over, it was evolving. That night, Margot called. Her voice was steady but softer than before. She said she'd heard about the photo scandal rumors spreading around the real estate circle. Apparently, Colton had leaked a story that one of my clients accused me of misconduct. No name attached, just enough to stain my reputation. Margot said she'd seen this before. It was his favorite trick. She also said she'd already handled it. When I asked what she meant, she told me to show up at the exhibition next Thursday, the one that was supposed to showcase my latest work. She said, "Just make sure you don't cancel it, no matter what happens before then." The next few days blurred together. Whispers spread, online and off. Some clients messaged me nervously, others avoided me entirely. But I kept the show scheduled. On Thursday morning, as I loaded the last photo files for display, I noticed something strange on my computer. A folder I didn't remember creating, exhibit_final_a. Inside were clips from my studio cameras, unedited, time-stamped. They showed Colton and Isabelle together, their voices clear, mocking me, joking about stealing my clients, and, most damningly, Colton's own voice bragging about how easy it was to make her lie about anything. The files were locked, encrypted with a password, but one was titled displayready.mov. I played it. It was the same footage, perfectly edited to fit into the sequence of my exhibition slideshow. It took me a moment to realize who must have done it. Margot. I didn't touch the file. I didn't delete it. I just let it stay there. Because she'd told me not to cancel. And I finally understood why. The evening of the exhibition felt surreal. The gallery lights glowed in long rows, reflecting off the polished floor like a stage set for a performance I hadn't agreed to give. Reporters, clients, and art students filled the room with the soft hum of polite conversation. Every flash of a camera felt like a spotlight pressing against my skin. I'd prepared a speech days earlier, something about artistic honesty and imperfection, but as I stood near the projector, I realized none of it mattered anymore. This wasn't about art. It was about exposure, and Margot knew it. The event coordinator, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface, asked if I wanted to preview the slideshow before it started. I said no. I wanted to see it unfold like everyone else, unfiltered. The lights dimmed. The first few slides appeared: landscapes, portraits, candid shots of the city. Each image drew a soft murmur from the audience. For a moment, I let myself feel something close to peace. But that didn't last long. Halfway through the show, the screen flickered. A small glitch. Then the image shifted to something darker, grainy video footage, time-stamped, unmistakably from my studio. The room went silent. The footage showed Isabelle and Colton, laughing, drinking from my wine glasses, the same ones I used for clients. Their voices were clear. Colton bragged about how he'd made her steal a list of clients, how Nathan was too blind to see it coming. Isabelle laughed along, her words slurred but sharp. He thinks love makes him safe. Every person in that room heard it. The video lasted less than a minute before fading to black and resuming the slideshow, as if nothing happened. But the damage was done. The air itself changed. People looked around, whispering. A few phones appeared, recording reactions. I didn't move. I didn't need to. Across the room, Isabelle stood frozen by the wine bar, pale as marble. She hadn't expected this. She was supposed to attend to show support and maybe repair her reputation. But Margot had other plans. Reporters began murmuring questions. Someone asked if the footage was real. Another wondered aloud if it was part of the show. I stepped forward, took the microphone, and said only one sentence. Truth looks different depending on who's watching. Then I walked off the stage. I didn't look back at Isabelle. Outside, the cold November air hit like a slap. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the release of weeks of tension. I walked a few blocks before stopping at a diner that stayed open late. Ordered coffee I didn't drink. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls, messages, notifications. News outlets had already started posting short clips from the event. Within an hour, someone uploaded the full video to social media, tagging Colton's real estate firm. By midnight, Reeves' scandal was trending. I didn't need to call Margot to know she was behind it. She'd orchestrated every second. She'd waited for her husband to fall in public, not just in private. At 1 a.m., I received an email from her. No subject line, no greeting, just a single sentence. Justice looks better under gallery lighting. I smiled for the first time in days. The next morning, the news broke in full force. Colton's company issued a public statement about ongoing internal review. Margot filed for divorce within 24 hours. Isabelle's business accounts vanished from social media. My exhibition, which was supposed to be small and local, became front-page material for reasons that had nothing to do with photography. By noon, I'd received calls from sponsors asking if I'd known the footage would play. I told them the truth. I hadn't. But I didn't deny that it was real. That weekend, my studio became a kind of shrine for curiosity seekers. Some came to see where the scandal footage had been shot, others just to gawk. I ignored most of them. I had work to do. Margot stopped by on Sunday. She didn't look like someone who'd just detonated her marriage. She looked free. She handed me a small flash drive and said, "Backup, just in case the original gets deleted." Before leaving, she added, "You were right not to touch the file. Colton tried to send his lawyer to the gallery this morning to demand it be removed. Too late now. It's everywhere." I asked why she helped me. She shrugged. "Because he did to me what she did to you. Only I didn't have proof until you walked in with it." Then she smiled faintly. "Now we both do." After she left, I plugged in the flash drive. It contained the same footage, but also something new. Audio from another night, clearly after the original video. Colton was yelling at Isabelle, accusing her of getting sloppy, of letting someone see them. Her voice trembled as she told him it wasn't her fault, that I'd started asking questions. Then Colton said, "If this falls apart, I'll bury him first." He never got the chance. Within 2 weeks, the investigation into his company uncovered falsified contracts, embezzlement, and fraudulent deals. Margot's evidence wasn't limited to the affair. She'd been gathering files for months. My video had simply been the final blow. Isabelle tried to call me several times after that. I didn't answer. She left one voicemail. Her voice was calmer than before, stripped of all pretense. She said she'd lost everything. Her job, her friends, her apartment. She asked if I'd planned all of it. I didn't reply, but a month later, a package arrived at my new address. No return label, just my name in her handwriting. Inside was the green scarf. Clean, folded neatly, no note. Just the scarf. I threw it away without opening it fully. By December, I'd sold the studio. I used the money to relocate to Seattle, start fresh. I didn't take much with me, just my cameras, some prints, and the lessons that came with betrayal. The story followed me online for a while, but eventually, something new replaced it. The world moved on, as it always does. I built a new portfolio there, a new series that captured urban isolation, the quiet corners where people pretend to be fine. I titled it Still Frames. Critics called it haunting. They didn't know why every photo in the series featured blurred figures walking away from the camera. One evening, as I was setting up for another small exhibit, my phone buzzed. A new email. No address listed, just the same anonymous number that had first warned me months earlier. The subject line read, "Unfinished business." The message was short. "You're welcome." She ruined me too. Margot. I didn't need to confirm it. I never replied. Months later, I saw a small article online, an interview with Margot about starting her own real estate firm. She looked radiant in the photo, confident. The interviewer asked about her inspiration, and her answer made me pause. She said, "Sometimes, the best way to rebuild is to let the truth burn everything first." I saved the quote. Not for her, not for Isabelle, but as a reminder. The fire that destroyed one chapter had illuminated everything that was real about me. Isabelle never appeared again, not in person, not online. Some people said she moved overseas. Others whispered she changed her name. I didn't care. Whatever she became, she'd already been immortalized in the footage, trapped in the moment where truth finally caught up to her. Years later, when I gave a talk at an art school, a student asked what inspired Still Frames. I told him it was about learning to see what people hide in plain sight. He smiled and said, "So it's about betrayal?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "It's about clarity. Sometimes the only way to see clearly is to lose everything that blurs your view." After the talk, I walked out into the rain, lifted my camera, and snapped a photo of the empty street. Two blurred figures crossed under an umbrella in the distance, one taller, one smaller. For a second, they reminded me of that day in Central Park. I didn't lower the camera. I just captured them and walked away. Because now, finally, every frame was mine again.